Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Simple Knit podcast. My name is Eleanor, and you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Simple Knit Co, and here on YouTube where I hang out and share with you all of the things that I've been making here in Brisbane, Australia. Mostly knitting, but actually today there is something non-knitty that I will be sharing with you. So some suspense. What will it be? You'll find out soon. Anyway, if this is your first time checking out the podcast, welcome. It's so lovely to meet you, and thank you so much for taking some time to hang out with me today. And if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. As always, it is a pleasure to spend a little bit of time with you. I hope you've got some craft to do. I hope you've got a beverage, hot or cold, adult or juvenile. I have a nice cup of coffee here. It is just about, I say it's Sunday morning, it's probably like 11:45 by now. So like, it's just skating in on a Sunday morning. And yeah, I thought I would take a chance today to sit down and give you an update on everything that I have been working on. I actually had a couple of days off work this week with a cold, just a plain old, boring old cold. Not COVID. Here in Queensland, when you get a PCR, they also test you for influenza A, influenza B, and rhinovirus, and it was not any of those either. It was just a cold, which is very pedestrian and very boring. But I was unwell for a few days, so I did have, when I had the energy, when I wasn't napping and having fever dreams, I did get some extra crafting done. I don't have any finished objects to share with you today, but I'm wearing a knit that you haven't seen before. You have seen it when I made it, but I'm not wearing. So this is my, oh gosh, what was it called? I should have looked this up. Luminen. This is the Luminen pullover by Sari Nordland. And I knit this in, oh gosh, Wool and the Gang Crazy Sexy Wool in the Glow Up Cream colorway. I just had to dig that out of my brain. So I made this back in April when I went away over Easter and my birthday. This was like my big holiday project, and it is in super bulky wool. The Crazy Sexy Wool is like crazy super bulky. It's very bulky wool. Wow. I haven't actually spoken to anyone yet today, so that might explain, hopefully. But anyway, it's super bulky, which is usually not my vibe, but I just felt like, you just feel like knitting something different. I saw this pattern, I thought it was really lovely. It's just got this super simple lace motif down the center. You can't really see, I'm wearing a light pink t-shirt underneath, so it kind of blends in, but it's a lovely pattern, knit up super quickly. I knit it on the recommended needle size, and because it is a super bulky wool, wow, I can't say that, it's quite like, there is not a lot of drape, and this yarn, it's almost like it almost feels like a roving when you're working with it, but it's not fragile like a roving would be. So it's kind of like a single ply, like super bulky single ply of yarn, but it's not like, you can't break it, like you have to cut it, you really can't break it by hand, which is interesting. But I did block it, but it's still like, I think this is still quite a dense gauge. I probably could have gone up a needle size, but I didn't want to run out of yarn because I didn't want to buy any more, because this yarn is quite expensive, and I did have some left over, so I probably could have afforded to go up a needle size, but then it would have been quite like, I'm not sure how much more drapey it would be, and it would have been, I don't mind the fit, and it's like, I've got one of my doors open. I did have this door open, but then someone down the road started leaf blowing. Actually, I think I can hear them. They're either leaf blowing or whippersnipping now. I don't think you can hear that, but I can, because I put the microphone on that side. But so it's a beautiful sunny winter's day here. I'd say it's like in the low 20 degrees Celsius temperature, which is like standard winter day, and it's August, which means it's windy in Brisbane. It's showtime, so the westerlies are here. So this is kind of, actually kind of like the perfect like cozy winter day in Brisbane jumper. Like I wouldn't want to exert myself because then I would get quite warm, but yeah, it's really nice, comfy, cozy, looks cute. And I think that's about all I have to say now. I've spoken for 5 minutes about this jumper, and I probably said that all of that when I made it anyway. But the other thing I would recommend, if you use this yarn, weave in your ends before you block it, because the yarn really puffs up and it was an absolute nightmare to weave in my ends. Luckily there weren't all that many. But yeah, so this is the Luminen pullover by Sari Nordland. I also have on my chair here, this is wow, it's the Folka shawl by Kiyomi Burgin? I think it is. If I'm wrong, I'll put it on the screen. But I must have been wearing this when I was sitting here crafting, because it was just sitting on this chair. So I just artfully popped it over the back of the chair. It does not match the chair at all, so it doesn't usually live here. But I knit that in Brooklyn Tweed Quarry in this greyish purple colour. I'll put my Ravelry project down below if you're interested. But yeah, love this, one of my most used things I've ever made. I wear it around the house all the time. If it's like a tiny bit cold when I'm going and doing my shopping, I'll wear it. It's kind of perfect when it's like, it's a little bit cold, but you don't want like a jumper over your whole body. You used to want some airflow. It's just this beautiful, massive, like wearable blanket. And yeah, I wear it all the time, year round. As I said, probably one of my most used finished objects. Oh, wow, I'm chattier than I thought I would be today. So let's move on to what I've been working on. There's nothing new in my knitting works in progress. The 2 projects that I just started last time, they are really the only 2 things that I have been working on. So which one first? Let's go for my cardigan first. So, oh gosh. This is the Escala cardigan by Alice Satano. It is from an issue of Amirisu, which is issue 19, Autumn Winter 2019. Let me just grab a picture up for you so you can see what it will look like, because where it is at this stage, it doesn't look like anything. Oh, the Folka shawl was from this issue of Amirisu too, so let me check. It was Kiyomi. It is by Kiyomi Burgin, Folka shawl. There it is. But let's find this cardigan. So here it is. Here's a little picture from the back of the Escala cardigan. And there it is from the front. Super cute. So like a really oversized kind of capey, drapey cardigan. Super fun to wear. The construction is really great. I'm having an absolute whale of a time knitting it. It's like knitting nirvana. Every stitch is so fun. It's really exciting. The chart is easy to follow. Like I could not say more positive things about the whole process of knitting this cardigan. I'm having so much fun. And you can't really say that to anyone except people who are watching a knitting podcast, because saying like I'm having the best fun knitting this project, people look at you like you are a bit crazy. But honestly, like so fun. Highly recommend this pattern. Anyway, I'm knitting it in Bendigo Woolen Mills Luxury 10 ply in the Koala colorway. It's a really nice, I'd say like a mousy brown. It's coming off a little, because I've got my, the lighting's a little bit cool in here. So it is coming off a little grayer than it is, well, at least in where I can see on my phone. It's coming off a tiny bit cooler. It's more of like I'd say like a warm, like mousy, taupey, browny gray. So I finished the first half. So how you knit this is one piece. Like, Eleanor, what is this? So you start at the sleeve and then you increase out for the body stitches. You bind off for the front half and then do some short rows to shape the back. So it's like, kind of like this so far. So obviously this is going to block, oh, that's warm, wool over wool. This fabric is super stretchy. It utilizes smock stitches, which I'd never done before, but are super easy. The technique in the pattern, there's a technique for it explained in the pattern that is super easy to follow and like just comes out really nicely. It's really easy to control your tension and everything. But yes, so you kind of knit this half, so this is the right half, and then when you finish you pick up to knit a neckband and a hem, but you don't do any, this is the actual finished edge of the sleeve, so make sure you do a nice neat cast on the sleeve, but that looks really lovely too. So that's the first half of it. I am now onto made pretty significant progress on the second half. So I'm about, I think I've got about like, because I'm in the middle of a pattern repeat, but I think I've got about one pattern repeat to go, which I think this one's about 16 rows before I bind off the front half and do the short rows on the back of the left hand side. So I'm definitely like clacking along, like this is not all that much to go. And I thought that, you know, picking up the neckband and the hem was going to take, like that will take a long time because it'll be quite long, but you do knit this on quite big needles and it is going way faster than I thought it would. So I'm using the recommended needle size, a 5.5 and a 5mm needle. You do change partway through. But yeah, it's just an awesome pattern. I think it looks absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait to see how this, I mean, the stitch pattern's already squishy and lovely, but I can't wait to see like how it blocks out. I think it's going to be absolutely stunning. So yeah, I knew I was having fun, but it wasn't until I sat down and started talking about it that I realized how much I'm just like, cannot put this down, would cancel plans to knit on this. It is really like just the right amount of like brain power required to knit on this. And yeah, I'm having an absolute, as I said, having an absolute ball. Let's see if I put it on, what it's gonna vaguely look like. Oh my gosh, doesn't that look so cozy and stunning? Yeah, right now. This is very realistic, but yeah, so get kind of a vibe of it. But yes, I can't wait. Oh, I'm having so much fun. This is such a great pattern. Highly recommend. I mean, that it's a few, like 3 years old, that issue of Amirisu now. So this will be available for individual sale on Ravelry as well if you want to knit one. There aren't that many projects on Ravelry for this actually, which is a shame because it is absolutely gorgeous. And what I'm doing with this, because obviously it's like huge, so for the bits of yarn and project that I'm not currently using, so like I've got my spare balls of Bendigo in here, I've got my nice big Bed Threads sheet set bag that is really great just for keeping all of the extra bits out of the way, but also like secure and neat. And then the part that I'm working on is just living in a smaller project bag that has like all of my spare cables and my spare notions and whatnot, so that even though, I mean, my apartment is like a dollhouse, it is so small, I'm not like lugging this anywhere, but just so that I have a nice little compact bag to be working from. So that's the Escala cardigan. I love it. You should cast one on. If you have some like worsted weight yarn in your stash, like, oh, what should I do with this? Do the Escala cardigan, or actually do the Folka shawl as well. That is another gorgeous pattern that you should knit in worsted weight yarn. That's also something, I don't know if I've ever discussed this on the podcast before. Okay, we're doing a tangent. I love Amirisu magazine. You've probably noticed if you've been watching even from right at the beginning, I knit quite a large proportion of my projects are ones that I get in Amirisu. I love their aesthetic. I like the designers that they use. It's very much my vibe. But the one thing, because I got burned with the Folka shawl, do not trust what they say the weight of the yarn is, because even like if you look on the Ravelry project page, like the a Ravelry like page for the pattern, what they say, they'll say like for this one, they said it's a bulky weight project, and then they have the yarn that is used. If you actually click on the yarn that's used, it's only a worsted weight. So I trusted, it was a yarn that it's a Japanese yarn that I wasn't familiar with. So when they said it's a bulky weight yarn, I was like, okay, I'll substitute a different bulky weight yarn. I chose to do Brooklyn Tweed Quarry. There must have been a sale on. But when I actually looked up the yarn that was used for the sample, it's only a worsted weight. Because I was like, why have I run out of yarn so quickly, and why is this so big? Because I'd used completely the wrong weight yarn. It still turned out gorgeous. I just did fewer ribbing rows around the end. Super cozy, would not change it, love it. But if you ever knit anything from Amirisu, check the yarn that the sample uses and what the actual weight of that yarn is, rather than trusting what Amirisu says the weight of the yarn is. I'm not sure if it's like, if in Japan they have like a different classification system, but yeah, that's just like a pro tip from me. So I love them, but I do not trust them. And there's a couple of ones where like they said in the magazine that it's a sport weight, and it's like Brooklyn Tweed Arbor, which is like a hefty DK. Anyway, just a pro tip, little tip from Eleanor. This other work in progress, you also saw this last time, but it actually looks like something this time, so I can show it a little bit better. So this is the Cloud Bow dress by Reed Keys from the Dreamscapes issue of Pom Pom that came out not that long ago. Yeah, I think it was issue 40. It's like, it was earlier this year. I'm actually knitting something not 100 years after I buy the magazine. So this is the pattern. There's a top version and a dress version. Stunning. I'm knitting a black dress version, and this is where I'm at so far. So it looks like a black blob. So I'm knitting this in FOMO yarn, which is from Spotlight. It is an acrylic yarn that kind of mimics mohair. So it's, yeah, like lace weight, super light. Is this anything? Yeah, but it's not mohair. And amazingly enough, it does not shed at all. Let me just grab a little ball. So there's a label. I think it's the Motivera brand from Spotlight. And yeah, that's what the yarn looks like. So it does look like a mohair silk yarn, but it doesn't shed at all. Like, this has not put a single gram of fluff over my apartment. It is a fluff magnet though, so any dust or hair, I'm just looking at it and it's horrific. Like, any piece of dust or hair that is anywhere near this will end up attached to it, but that's fine. Ugh. Anyway, so this is where I'm at so far. So I've done the 2 sleeves and I've picked up and knit the neckband as well. I did make 2 tiny little modifications. So as recommended in the pattern, around the ends of the sleeve and the neckband, just for a bit of extra stability, I held the lace weight yarn with a black fingering weight yarn. I ended up using, I had some leftover, oh, it's not in here, leftover black Lindy chain yarn that I had from my flying home top. So I just used that and held that for the end of the cuff. So in the pattern for the sleeve and for the neckband, it has you knit like however long and then fold over and seam down. So you have like a stockinette folded edge for your hems on your sleeve and your neck. I didn't want to do that, basically. On black yarn, the idea of having to like stitch match on these little tiny hems was not a vibe. Did not want to do that. So what I did instead, I just knit a couple of rows, and on the sleeves I did an I-cord bind off. So it's still nice, it's pretty taut, so it will sit nice and stable on my arm. It's about equal to my arm circumference, so it's not loose, but it'll like maintain a little bit of structure on the arm, which is kind of what I wanted, so you get the effect of these little puffy sleeves. And then around the neck I just did a 1x1 rib and then a nice stretchy bind off. I can knit 2 together stretchy bind off around the neck because it's black, you can't really see any details. So this was much easier to do and I feel like will look basically exactly the same as a folded over neckband would have in this situation. So yes, I finished the top, did the neckband so it looks nice and neat, and now I'm just knitting the body of the skirt. Click clack go my needles. So yes, it's just stockinette in the round on quite a large circumference, and I get to do this. Probably looks like I've done from the top like about 20 centimeters or so far. So this is going to be on me kind of like a baby doll fit. So the seam at the bottom of the top section will be like right under my bust. So it'll have kind of like a baby doll effect, but it's also quite oversized. So I think it'll be pretty cute. And I mean, it's a giant black mohair dress. So just like big witch vibes. My goal is to have this finished by the end of October for spooky season. Maybe I'll be able to do that because it is just stockinette in the round, but it's a lot of stockinette in the round. So I don't like to set deadlines for myself because my rebel personality then decides I will want to do anything but knit on this. So in my mind, I'm like, it would be nice to have this for Halloween, but if I don't, it's not the end of the world. It's just something fun to knit on. But I am actually making, now that I'm looking at it, like, oops, sorry, I just kicked the tripod, the tower of books on a stool that I'm using to hold up my camera. Yeah, I'm actually a little bit further along than I thought. And I looked at kind of the measurements in the pattern, and kind of like put that against my body. I might actually knit it a little bit longer than called for in the pattern. I have a couple of ready to wear dresses that are kind of the length that I'm looking for this. So I'll probably just hold, I did measure those dresses, but they do have kind of slightly different structure at the top. So I think I might just hold this against those and see, like just make them match the length of that dress. I think that would be a good idea because I have a couple of dresses that I was thinking about this morning that I kind of like the length of. They're like mid calf length. They're just a good length on my height. I'm 5'6". I'm 5'5" and a tiny bit, so I just say I'm 5'6". But like I'm not super tall. So yeah, that's my plan for that. So I'm not sure when I'll show this again on the podcast, just because it's going to be a black vortex of stockinette for a long time. I am going to do the full ruffle detail around the bottom of the dress. There are options in the pattern there are options in the pattern for sleeve length. There are options for like ruffle, no ruffle. The other modification I did make in the dress version of the pattern, you pick up, so in the shirt, the peplum top version has you pick up more stitches or increase more rapidly for the body than the dress does. I did the full amount of the full amount of increases from the top version. So it's a bit more voluminous than the dress sample in the pattern. So yeah, as I said, I'm not sure how often I will show this. I will put a little stitch marker on where I'm up to now, just so if I do show it, you can see how much further I've got. But yeah, as I said, it's just going to be a black dust catching vortex for quite a while. But once again, it's actually a pretty enjoyable knit for the fact that it's just black stockinette. But yeah, that is my cloud bow dress, my very witchy cloud bow dress. So that's pretty much the only knitting that I've been working on. I've got these two quite big projects. I actually think I'm still a while off finishing. Like I think I'm about over 50% of the way through the cardigan. So I shouldn't be too far off finishing that one. The dress, I'm not setting myself a deadline. I'm not even pretending that I'm close to being finished. And I also have, because I'm doing like more increases than in the pattern, I actually have no idea how much yarn it's going to take. So I can't even use my amount of yarn used to track my progress. But the other thing that I've been working on, which is a slight change of pace, for many reasons, is some cross stitch. So story time. Last year, the Witchy Stitcher on Instagram, who makes amazing witchy cross stitch patterns, she hosted a stitch along it was like a cryptid stitch along. So it was kind of like a sampler style pattern, and each week like a new little creature would come out, and the pattern is released like one creature at a time. And Bernadette from the Coffee and Craft podcast, and she's Bernadette Makes on Instagram. I love everything that she does. She's a really fun person to follow. She was doing the cryptid stitch along. I thought, oh, that looks really, really fun, but I'm not really a cross stitch person. Then I saw that this year the Witchy Stitcher was doing another stitch along and the theme was just supernatural. So just supernatural, spooky creatures. So I thought I would jump on, because I thought about actually buying the pattern for the cryptid stitch along, and just like the stitch along was obviously way finished, but just doing it at my own pace. But I thought maybe I would jump on the bandwagon of the supernatural stitch along. I am so far behind because I am not an experienced cross stitcher at all, and cross stitching is very slow. I think it's slow anyway. I've been talking to a couple of my friends who do cross stitch, and it's kind of a limit to how fast you can go, but I'm having fun. So the way it was structured is at the start of June, the pattern for the frame was released. So the idea was that you had the entire month of June to knit the whole frame, and then from July, like once a week with a few rest weeks in between, one creature would be released. I have done like less than a quarter of the frame and one creature. So I'll just show you. I won't show you this very often because I'm going to be very slow, but I thought every so often, maybe it's interesting. Do you do cross stitch? I would just jump in and show you what I've done so far. So as you can see, I've done most of this top part. I have no idea what this frame is. We just found it when my parents were moving a couple of years ago. They just like found this in their garage and said, do you want it? So I took it, and it's just like a roll frame. I don't know. I had to look up on the internet. There was no instructions. It was in this horrible old bag. It had never been opened, but it looked like it was from like the 70s. So I reckon we probably found it at one of my grandparents' house, and then it just sat under my parents' house until they moved. But anyway, I'm using that to hold my project. So I've done the word at the top, the supernatural, that I keep looking at and feel like I've spelt it wrong. I know I haven't, and I've done some of the, I haven't finished the detailing along the top, and I have finished the first little creature. So it's a little siren. Isn't she adorable? So there are currently, this is no spoilers because I think there's there's been 5 creatures released so far. So I just finished the first one, and this is as far as I've done on the frame. So I think I'm like halfway down the length I need to be, and then I need to go across the bottom and up again for the frame. Sorry, I kicked the tripod again. It's new filming setup. It's very stressful. But yeah, I'm having a great time. I have no illusions that I'm ever going to catch up with the actual stitch along. Maybe I will. But cross stitching is something that I find it's quite meditative and mindful, in that I literally can't do anything else when I'm cross stitching. I can't watch anything. I can't think about anything. The most I can do is either put on some music or like an audio podcast that doesn't move too fast. And audio podcasts are probably one of my least favorite mediums to listen to. There's a couple that I do listen to and keep up with, but like auditory information is not my favorite way to consume content. I can't do audiobooks. I just tune out. I love to read. It would be great if I could listen to audiobooks. I feel like I would read a lot more, but I don't listen. Even when I listen to an audio podcast, I'm always having to skip back because I just stopped paying attention. But that's like the only, as I said, listening to a podcast or some music is the only thing I can do when I'm cross stitching. And I also, because you can't do anything else, I find I just get like sucked in. And I'll feel like I'll do it for hours. The time will pass so quickly and I don't really get that much done. But that's fine. It's fun. And like the idea of like, I just have all these like half-baked ideas in my brain about like crafting and productivity. I know I was watching, because obviously I was off work for a couple of days, so I was watching quite a lot of crafty podcasts and like old back episodes of people's and things. And I sometimes like start to feel not great about myself because I feel like other people get so much more done than me, and like I feel like I'm not productive enough in my crafting. Even though this is my hobby, this is supposed to be fun, I feel like I should also be productive, because also if I'm productive, I'm then like justified the fact that I'm spending my time doing this thing, like, oh, this is what I have to show for my time. And I know that's something that I kind of would use to like justify, that's not the right word, but I can't come up with a better one. I've been thinking about this morning, like justify the fact that I do craft to non-crafty people, because I know that sometimes you'll, like when people find out that you like you knit, you stitch, you embroider, you sew, you quilt, whatever, like, oh, I don't know how you find the time. I just wouldn't have the time. And I would kind of say, oh, well, it's something to do while I'm watching TV. So I have like something productive to do while I'm doing a non-productive pastime, like watching TV or whatever, as a way to like justify the fact that I spend this time and money and my like all my resources on this hobby. But like productivity is a lie. Capitalism is a lie. Like your time doesn't have to be marked by what you've produced in that time. So that's something that that's like not really like a fully actualized idea, but just something that I've been thinking about, especially with cross stitching, because I'm very slow and it takes a lot of time to not do very much. So it almost sometimes my little like that voice in my head wants to say, oh, that wasn't a very good use of your time, was it? Because you spent all of those hours and you did like 3 repeats of this little edge design and that's it. That's all you have to show for those hours. But like time isn't real, you guys. So you can spend as many hours doing whatever you want. And yeah, maybe when you're first learning to knit, you spend like 4 hours knitting and you have only a couple of rows and you feel like, where did that time go? But where that time went was learning a new skill and using your hands to make something. And I think that's really beautiful and really important. And I was actually just about to make myself cry about how much I love doing craft. So I'm really preaching to the choir. I know that you guys probably know all of that already, but sometimes I do know as well. I'll be watching someone's podcast who just like cranks out socks so quickly. And then I will start to feel bad that I'm not productive enough or that my podcast isn't like exciting enough because I don't knit as quickly as other people do, but I don't have to. And if people want a productivity based podcast, they're probably not watching mine. So that's absolutely fine as well. You do not have to be here. I won't get mad if you clicked off halfway through this video because this is really just for me and my 3 friends that watch. So yeah, that's a little bit of a half thought through ramble, but yeah, I don't want any of you to ever feel pressured to be productive because it's not real. And you can do whatever you like with your time. So hit me up in the comments below. Let me know what you've been making. Do you cross stitch? And have you found, if you do cross stitch, have you found if you do it a lot, you get faster? And sorry, I just looked and I wonder if this camera is on like a really upward facing angle. So you kind of feel like you're staring up at me. I'll have to watch that back. Anyway, let me know in the comments below if you found that doing a lot of cross stitch makes you any faster. Not that that really matters, I'm just interested. Let me know what you're making as always. If there's anything else exciting going on in your part of the world, please let me know. I'm always interested. And I also always really appreciate the fact that you have come and spent a couple of minutes of your day hanging out with me, doing some craft and being a nerd. So thank you so much. Have a great however long it is before I podcast again, and I will see you next time. Bye.